either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Buckle up, listeners. Get ready for a podcast that's 100% death-proof. Only to get the benefit of it, honey, you really got to be sitting behind our mic. This is the Good, the Bad, the Weird podcast. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And if you haven't guessed it, we are doing the second half of Grindhouse. And if you haven't guessed it, go back and listen to our first one, because we tell you that's what we're going to be doing. We're doing Death Proof.
This movie's so much fun. I love it. It's a great counterpart to the first one, because I popped this DVD in, and my husband goes, so how many titties and death is going to be in this one? And I went, you'll just have to pay attention, because I think there's less titties in this one. He's like, oh.
Yeah, just a little less, Brian.
Yeah.
A lot less.
Yeah.
And I'm excited we did this, because we've toyed around with doing a Tarantino flick since we started the podcast. But
this is true. We tease him mercilessly. And
it's very intimidating because, I mean, Tarantino is a big nerd, and because he shoves so much references into his movies, it often feels like it's a grand hurdle, just because they're like, well, maybe I gotta watch this to understand this reference, or watch that to understand this reference.
That is very true, which is why I'm very glad that Death Proof exists, because while he is self-aware, and there are occasions of nerdism in this one, it's fairly self-contained. Thank God.
Yeah, for the most part. And I mean, there are some obscure references he does too that,
of course,
I enjoyed a couple of them.
Of course. It's Quentin Tarantino, and being Quentin Tarantino, he is in his own movie, which is my favorite game to play with him, is Spot the Director. But this was a great comparison too, because watching the first one really set the bar for the Grindhouse style, and having read that the first one we watched, Planet Terror, did so much worse than this one. You know, it didn't make as much money, the critics didn't like it nearly as much, everyone was making Death Proof out to be like the clearly superior of the two movies.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Robert Rodriguez versus, who's good in his own right, but he's not Quentin Tarantino, who by this point already did Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, this is after all of the things that made Quentin Tarantino. However, from just watching them back to back, I would argue that the two are on pretty equal footing.
At times. Yeah, I mean, it is hard to like really compare the two at times, because like they definitely know their genre as well.
Yes.
And they're obviously big fans of the genre too.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, so for those who haven't guessed it as well, this is written and directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Yep. It sure is.
It's starring, and I'm going to go through a bunch of names because there's a lot of stars in this movie.
There's
and they are
so many.
They are main stars, too.
Yep.
Kurt Russell as Stuntman Mike.
A fantastic casting choice.
Zoe Bell as Zoe Bell.
A fictional version of herself.
Rosario Dawson as Abernathy. Vanessa Ferlito as Arlene. Sydney Tammy Porter? I don't know. As Jungle Julia. Tracy Toms as Kim. Jordan Ladd as Shauna. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Lee, who you would recognize as Ramona Flowers.
Of course. Of course.
So when she said for Quentin in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, she had worked with him before.
Yeah, that's true. And I love that Zoe, being one of the maybe larger named leading ladies here, wasn't really aware of how big her role was going to be.
Oh yeah, well, and that's the thing that I wanted to talk about right from the start of this, is that in the story of making a movie, I think the special features say a lot when the first special feature on Death Proof is all about the stunt people.
I completely agree, because this movie really is more of an ode to Grindhouse cinema, but also to stunt people and stunt driving in general. This whole movie just feels like an excuse to spend money on stunt people and wreck cars.
Yeah.
And I'm all for this.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those ones where I would say between the two, it's a little bit more of the accessible kind. If you've seen Fast and the Furious, you can say it's roughly in line with that, because we talked about doing the second Fast and the Furious.
True.
But Fast and the Furious doesn't fall fully into that carsploitation era flick.
No, and so the first one was Grindhouse in the most standard way. There's titties, there is gore, like, and there's monsters.
Mm-hmm.
This one is still Grindhouse, but it's more in the, like, theme of Grindhouse. The gore really is barely there. If, like, for a horror film person, I would say it's non-existent.
It's in one scene.
Exactly. Like, there's no nudity at all in this movie.
But there's sexy women, lots of crotch shot.
The entire cast is nothing but sexy women, minus Kurt Russell. Thank you, sir.
Very handsome man himself.
Yes, but I would like to say that, in case anyone's confused, this is 2007. Kurt Russell was by no means the young hot man that many of us remember him as.
I'm on the other side of it.
You remember him better as the old guy?
No, though that's the thing is, I find actors more attractive the older they get, in some regards.
And I totally get it. But that's kind of the whole reason Kurt was even picked in the first place, is Quentin Tarantino was like, oh my gosh, I remember Kurt Russell being this amazing actor. I remember him being this, like, superhero sort of character where he was, like, the it man, and now he's doing all these, like, softer roles. He's doing more just, like, general stuff. I want him back as the lead man. I want him to be cool and fierce again.
Yeah, I didn't realize how old Kurt Russell is and how long he's been acting. He's been doing this since the 60s, when he was 11.
Yeah, Kurt Russell's list is long, and I think that, honestly, this is kind of my favorite version of Kurt Russell, because yes, we get cool Kurt Russell back, which, if you've seen his older stuff, like, this has that vibe of him being, like, the really cool, really sexy dude again.
Well, and that's also because so the idea of Kurt Russell being brought into this movie came from the joke that Planet Terror was the Lost Carpenter film between Escape from New York and The Thing.
Yeah. Which
gave Tarantino the idea of, like, maybe Kurt Russell should be stuntman, Mike, because he grew up in that era of, like, when stuntmen were stuntmen. Everyone knew a stuntman named Mike.
100%. And he plays the role perfectly, with also having the, like, quintessential Kurt Russell lines and dialogue and speech occasionally, where, like, he pulls you in. You get really invested in him as stuntman, and then he says a line, you're like, oh man, that was really Kurt Russell-y.
Yeah.
Like, extra Kurt Russell-fied.
Yeah. And for those unfamiliar with the plot of this movie, it follows two groups of friends who become the target of the murderous stuntman Mike in his death-proof car, hence the name Death-Proof, which we'll get into what Death-Proof is later on.
Exactly. The plot is almost non-existent, if I'm being very frank with you. Yeah, this movie is mostly an excuse for cars.
And ass.
And ass. Yeah. Well, we say and ass. We have teased Quentin Tarantino mercilessly about the feet thing.
There's a lot of feet in this.
This movie is this is after he has been confronted about the feet thing, and it is public knowledge and kind of an inside joke at this point.
I thought that was, like, way later, because I didn't learn that until, like, I was in college.
I also didn't learn it, but no, the interview that we all remember had already come and gone.
Okay. It just resurfaced. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like the whole, like, Marilyn Manson rib thing. We all learn it about the same age. Doesn't mean it's new info.
He didn't have it.
I know. Yeah. That's why we all learned this information again 20 years later when we learned it was a fake lie.
Yeah. He even references in a song that it was too expensive.
Yeah. And so at this point, Tarantino it is known, and he is riffing on himself a little bit, I believe.
Yeah. Just a little bit, I think.
Especially the leg. Later.
Yeah. But our sources for today's episode include Stunts on Wheels, the legendary drivers of Death-Proof, introducing Zoe Bell, Kurt Russell as Stuntman Mike, Finding Quentin's Gals, the guys of Death-Proof, as well as Quentin's greatest collaborator, editor Sally Menke.
And honestly, the special features of this DVD were immaculate. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Again, I give kudos to it where the very first special feature is just talking about all the stunt people involved and the stunt people who inspired it, because that's the thing. They did a big focus of Jeff Dashnaw, who is the stunt coordinator, and as well as Buddy Joe Hooker.
Great name.
And it just shows that this movie is such a love story to the stuntman, because even just a little fun bit about this, there was a documentary shot of Zoe Bell when she was being cast for Kill Bill that shows the exact moment she found out she was Kill Bill. But on top of that, afterwards, Tarantino wrote the second half of the movie specifically for her. And it was funny because she was reading through it and she thought she was just going to have a guest appearance again. And she thought it was a joke at first that her character was such a big part of the second half of this movie. And then it's like, no, this is...
Your name is going to be on this.
Exactly. But that's the thing is, she even said that, even when she worked on Kill Bill, Tarantino treated her as an actor. And I think that just goes to... And we 100% can see it in this movie. But I think that just goes to show the level of craft that Tarantino goes through and what he does, where he's even treating... Like, he understands that there's a performance aspect in being a stunt double, that you have to do it a specific way, and there's certain camera angles you have to do, and sometimes they're half of the movie.
Oh, 100%. I completely agree. And I think a big, like, visual representation that this movie does for that is the fact that there is not one stunt with 800 camera shots of the exact same car jump or death or, explosion. There is multiple shots, like clearly multiple shots of multiple stunts happening. Like, this is clearly a love piece to the stuntman and to the car.
Yeah, and Zoe Bell is doing every single one of them.
And it's so much fun.
The other women, stunt doubles.
Yes.
Zoe Bell,
always.
All of it.
Always.
But I'm also glad we chose to do this one because, one, there's no commentary from Tarantino, so there's not like all these references that you have to pull out of. I'm sure there's some YouTube channel that's like, this is a reference to this is a reference to that, but it feels like it takes the weight off and demystifies a little bit, and maybe that's how we should approach it going forward.
Yeah.
But I also like this one because it's the odd one out of his library. When you talk to people who love movies and stuff, and this is often when you bring up Tarantino, this is the movie that they haven't seen.
I completely agree. And yes, I definitely could catch a few references here or there. But unlike his other movies where, like, part of the greatness is his understanding of this huge dictionary of movies and his gigantic lexicon that he pulls from to make movies, like, very fantastic, this one is more of just basic cultural things that he finds cool, like the different types of cars that are shown, the different paint jobs, how things are death-proofed. That's really the focus of the movie, and I appreciate that so much.
And a little self-awareness that I'll get into
definitely
halfway through the movie. But that's the other thing, too, is this movie is also a weird one for him because in Grindhouse, usually it's a double-billed movie, so when I first heard about these two movies, I watched Planet Terror and then I watched Death Proof.
Yep.
And Death Proof in itself is almost two movies. It's first movie and its sequel, but they're all both too short to be separate movies.
Completely agree. In fact, if this movie had had like a full intermission, I would not have been shocked, because that's how cleanly it's split down the half.
No, exactly. That's the weird thing, is like, could easily be split in two.
And honestly, maybe that's kind of the genius to it, because especially reading up on this one, it makes sense that he was a little wary about how this would do internationally. Grindhouse film isn't necessarily a genre in other countries, and having a double feature is also not necessarily a big thing, depending on where you go.
Yeah, and depends in the modern era, in the 2000 or late 2000s, yeah. Usually if you're going to see a double feature, it's at the dollar movie theater.
Exactly, and so I can see him planning this out to immediately go to home media. He knew it was going there. Having something that has a nice pause spot in the middle, especially for a home DVD that's already got a double feature built in, kind of a nice little touch.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah. Before
we start, Chris, what are we drinking today?
We have brought back the Bud Light Lime, because honestly, this is incredibly appropriate for this movie. We weren't going to make ourselves shitty margaritas, so this is the best choice.
Yeah, and Jaeger bombs didn't seem accurate or good.
No, and they just take shots of stuff, and I'm good. I have to drive home after this.
I feel ya.
So, cheers. Oh, Bud Light Lime. You always taste the same.
So, Death Proof.
Oh, yes.
I will say, while I like the stock intro and limited emissions, and the cool retro feel on the dashboard, I am a little disappointed that between these two DVDs, they don't have all the trailers.
I agree. The trailers, especially Planet Terror's stupid machete trailer, really did kind of add something, and I kind of was missing it. I did love the, like, purposefully bad editing at the beginning of this movie. There's a lot of random chops. There's some, like, purposefully misdone stuff to make it look like the film has been messed up or maybe mixed up a little.
Yeah, it's old, slightly grainy effect of Planet Terror, but not really going as far as...
No, I would argue that Planet Terror tries harder to make itself look like a 70s film. This one, despite having the vibes of a 70s film, you're never questioning when this is. The technology is just a little too in your face. The film styling isn't as done aggressively.
They've got slide phones.
They do, so. And like you get to physically watch someone go through the numbers to text. It's not even a keyboard phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it's 2007. You cannot predict the future. And also, like, we're not trying too hard. This movie was not expensive to make.
It's making it something of its era. But at the same time, I do appreciate this intro because it is telling us what the whole movie's going to be about. It's going to be hot girls in cars as we get, like, girls going to each other's house and one car driving really, really fast.
Oh, yeah.
With a skull on the front.
And it's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Also, there's a lot of posters everywhere, and I think this...
So many.
I think this is the scene this is the part with the most crotch shots.
This and the quote-unquote cut scene halfway through the movie where we have the lap dance. I would agree, these are the most aggressive crotch shots.
Yeah.
And then we intro hard with a foot. Just really looking at feet.
Yeah.
In fact, we're looking at feet so hard that my husband didn't know what movie we were watching. He looked up and went, "Is this a Tarantino film?"
I love that that's a defining feature of Tarantino is their feet. Show me the piggies.
Well, okay, and like and granted, I have not watched the entire library of Tarantino's films, but previous Tarantino films had feet. This movie is an aggressive amount of feet.
I will say, going back and rewatching Kill Bill Volume 1, where she's like, wiggle your big toe, it's like, God damn it.
Yeah. It's once you see it.
It's supposed to be an empowering scene, but it's just like, I hate you a little bit now that you've tainted this just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Still a cool scene, but...
See, and like, this is where it is so blatantly obvious that like, this is a bit of a play on himself, because the first bit with the feet on the dashboard feels appropriate. Like, we know from the get-go this is a car movie, it's gonna be stunts, it's gonna be hot girls. This feels right. And then we just stay staring at the feet. The piggies are on screen for like 5 minutes.
Even when it's in wide shots, there's
still feet.
Foot, yeah.
And if it was just the one shot at the beginning, I would have given it the pass of like, oh, this is just his calling card. Like, this is just a thing in the movie. We're looking too hard. There are 5 different feet in this film. Without shoes on them.
Yeah.
That's not even counting the shoed feet.
Well, I do think it's also fitting. One, we do get the setup that this is set in Austin, Texas.
It is very appropriate.
Again, Planet Terror was in Texas. That's why they said Jungle Julia. Why else would they know?
That's true. That's true.
But it's also the way he writes women in the beginning is they're talking about weed and just what they're going to be doing this weekend. And it's not about men right away. I think that's a great way to introduce them. I mean, yeah, it eventually does. I mean, that's how conversations go. Even when you talk to guys, it gets to women at some point or another.
Sure. I mean, and like, this is meant to be clearly a summer fun sort of film. Like, it's supposed to envelop the whole idea of like, you're just hanging out on a hot, like, July day in Texas. You're gonna go to the bar. What's at the bar? Booze, maybe some weed, some cigs, and guys.
Yeah, we're setting up our characters of Jungle Julia being a big name, and our first character, Arlene, not being a prude, but to her friends' standards a prude. They're just trying to get her laid this weekend a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Also, I do think the Jungle Julia billboards are fun. I
love them, especially because they remind me very much of, like, this time. Like, again, this movie's supposed to be 70s-esque, but the early 2000s is too hard on it, because every billboard, I think, had a jungle vibe at some point. There was the DJ ones, there was the lawyer ones, like, there was the car salesman guy who was going crazy. So it has such a delightful memorance vibe.
See, here's the thing is, I don't remember billboards too much because, one, so Alaska has a rule against it, so for...
Aren't you all so fancy?
8 years of my life, no billboards. Same with Germany, same with Italy. I only lived in Nebraska between 2003 and 2006, so by the time this movie came out, I was back to no billboards, really. Yeah. I mean, in the city you have them, but they're not, like, major all over the place like you see them here.
Let me tell you something. Missouri lives for a billboard.
Oh,
we're fans of a billboard.
I'm well aware. I passed like 20 of them on the way to your place.
We love to play the game. How far away from Springfield, Missouri can you see a Fantastic Caverns billboard? And the answer is really, really far away.
Precious memories too.
Oh my god, it's wonderful. So like, I have long and fond memories of billboards and billboard eras, and there are different styles for sure. And the jungle-styled billboard has this extra nostalgic factor, like, in the same way that the phone has a nostalgic factor, in the same way that this bar is clearly meant to be, like, a nostalgic-styled bar.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that it's DJ Jungle Julia.
Yeah.
And it's in a stupid fakey costume. She's posed real dumb. Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it fits the whole vibe of what's the movie's going to be about.
Oh, for sure.
But I also like that in this dialogue, it does such a quick job of establishing the relationships between the girls. All of their, even like their dad, even one of the one rich friend who they're going to their lake house is like, if daddy knows there's going to be girls showing up, he's going to make sure that that's all that shows up. He'll show up himself. And it's like, I like that you wrote that the dad's a pig, because that's such a fitting thing for like a single dad to show up who hasn't got action in a while to check on his daughter's hot friends.
And also, like, these are not like teenagers.
Yes.
They are ambiguously aged. They're definitely supposed to be young and fun.
Early, mid-20s, I'd say.
It's kind of like the fun vibe we get, but honestly, like, the age of these women could be anything. And it's also very, like, it's very clear that, like, they are old enough to drink and to be driving themselves and spending the whole day at a bar. Daddy does not need to go to the lake house.
No, exactly.
They are fine.
Well, and I also appreciate that we have that setup to them, and then it turns slightly sinister when we see that a car is kind of following them.
And this one's music is a little bit more aggressive than Planet Terror's. Planet Terror's music was very well, like, escalated, it's very thought through. This one's music is very on the nose, but it's kind of in a fun way, because the moment the black car shows up, the music gets, like, kind of spooky, gets a little metal on the, like, a little edgy, and you're like, ooh, spooky car.
Well, and we know this is the car that's from the beginning because it's got the skull on it, so
it's very unique.
You're pairing it with the kind of fun that these girls have been having to this car just driving really aggressively on country roads, and it's just like, okay, so there's a little bit of danger that's foreshadowing and following them. And
it's not even, like, subtle. It's so aggressive that it kind of adds this level of fun tease to the movie.
Yeah, it's like a slasher flick where it's it's standing there menacingly.
Oh,
Leedle.
It's exactly that, but adult, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, and then when we get the hard cut to Guerrero's, it's less playful. Like, well, it's still it's still playful in like some of the filming of like the backtracking of the film. Also, there's a lot of movie posters in the background, and it's
so many.
I was looking them up. They're all the Mexican versions of those movies, so it's
kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Fun.
That's the nerdiness that he throws into this shit.
Oh, for sure. Maybe a little more tamped down than his normal, but a nice enough touch that if you feel like Googling, there's something to Google.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's the fun in Tarantino movies is trying to figure out like, what's this a tie to? I don't think any of the movies tied specifically to this. I think they're all just movies he liked, but
yeah, I mean that does feel the vibe for this. It's a very low budget. It's a very easygoing.
Yeah,
but it's kind of the fun in it.
Well, on top of seeing the car before, this dialogue is building up the danger that Julia's actually put them into position with, kind of putting a target on their backs of like, that Arlene didn't know that, hey, she's trying to get you laid, girl, but like, and I get it. It's a kind of a fun prank that you'd play on your friend of like, we promised them that if they said these words, you'd give them a lap dance, and it's like, maybe it'll lead to something for you. And
it does all feel like dumb fun, which I think adds to this, where there doesn't need to be a big plot point. There doesn't need to be a big explanation or story-driven reason for us to get from point A to point B. It can just be a dumb reason.
Well, and that's the thing with like Tarantino movies is the way he writes dialogue too. There's always this pace and flow of the conversation that doesn't make it boring. Because like in this conversation specifically, because this movie is a lot of dialogue for an hour, for the first like 45 minutes to an hour of it.
It is a surprising amount of dialogue for a car-based film.
But Arlene turning the situation back on Julia, like when they're practicing the flirting of like, oh, our friend's going to do it too, just do it. And then she's like, oh yeah. And then kind of turns it back. Oh yeah, my friend Jungle Julia. And she's like, okay, we can stop. And she's like, oh, you don't like it when it's on you now.
Yeah.
It's good writing.
It is.
And it reminds me a little bit, we see it kind of in the same way in Inglourious Bastards, where Shoshana, meets Hans Landa in the cafe again, and he's doing his own investigation and telling her to wait for the cream. It's like that very subtle, like, does he know or doesn't he know? Has he figured it out? It's just kind of like that. It's that edge of the knife.
Yeah.
Issues that he puts on it, even in like the mundane stuff of your friend pulling an asshole prank on you.
Very true. Very true.
But I do also appreciate that they did give her a way out. Of like, you can say, oh, someone's already done it before.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is a good, like, it gives that escape card if needed, but that gets twisted on her again later on.
And honestly, a lot of this writing feels kind of dumb silly until you get towards the end of the movie and you realize where this movie's truly going. Because it sets itself up so easily and, like, nicely to be just a normal, fun slasher film. Which has a set of rules, it has a set of, expectations for hot girls, right? And this movie does a nice job of setting all that up, having room for that sort of horror film to exist, and then we can play with it later once we get farther into the story.
Yeah, well, I know, exactly. And I mean, even then he, like, changes the mood a little bit with the classic overexposed night horror shots.
True.
And finally seeing the stalker's face. Like, that's something that's interesting to give up right away, is seeing this guy's face instead of doing the whole dual thing of you never see the killer's face.
Oh no, this is honestly one of the, like, most interesting parts of the film, is unlike other, especially car-based, like, scary movies, where the car almost becomes the monster itself, because you never really see the driver. Kurt Russell is in this film the whole damn time.
Yeah.
It's not a mystery of who the bad guy is. He shows up almost immediately. And it's not even like who's the scary guy in the corner. He waltzes up to the bar. Everybody knows him.
But that's the thing, is like, he does it in a little bit later scenes of, like, where he does stuff where it puts you off edge of, like,
he's still creepy.
He's still creepy, but maybe that's just his vibes. He's actually kind of a good guy. Like, he's not, like, everyone knows him is the thing. I think that's the other thing too, is like, it's like, Ed Kemper.
Yeah.
When they talk about, like, how he was the buddies with all the cops, and he'd say offshoot stuff, and they're like, oh, don't worry about that. That's just Kemper. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh no, and like, as much as this movie is a love song to the stuntman and to stunt drivers, this movie also has some very interesting, like, self-awareness of, like, how sometimes if you're in a certain field, like, you get categorized as, like, oh, they're the weird guy. And, like, they play into that kind of nicely with Russell's role as, like, well, he's the like, retired-esque kind of sort of stunt guy. Like, he still gets called by his stuntman Mike name. Like, he doesn't want to be just Mike. He's a little weird, he's a little too much. He definitely has way too many points on his license. He's been pulled over a lot.
He's the local character.
And like, no one's worried about him. But also, every local at the bar is like, no, I don't hang out with Mike.
Well, and also, like, that's the thing, maybe he doesn't hang out with them, they just know who he is.
I think that's it.
But on top of that, with him showing up too, the guys enter the picture now, which is also, like, another form of, like, okay, well, now they're not just being, in a way, they're hunted by Mike. Yeah. But they're also kind of being hunted by these other guys who are creepy in their own rights that we hear later on. That's true. So that's why I think, and that's the thing too, is like, before we even get to know Stuntman Mike, these guys are creepy ahead of time, so that puts Mike as like, okay, maybe he's just like a guy who's kind of, they just happen to show up at the same time. He's just checking them out and moving on with his life, whereas like these guys are actively trying to get with them in the sleaziest way possible. The other thing that I like is they do a great job of writing all of the guys as kind of asshole, but not so much as for you to be like, yeah, police officer, that's the man over there. It's just like, you're talking to one chick, but while ogling another. You're over here asking for smooches in the car, and it's like, we were just out for a cigarette. This is not really the ideal time. Yeah. It's like, no, I will cry if I don't get kisses. And it's like, okay, put your big boy pants on. You'll be all right. Yeah, well, and that's the other thing, too, is, like, well, also, we get our fun little cameos. I love Eli Roth in this. He's great. Yep. And then Tarantino as Warren, just buying shots for everyone, because he's that kind of guy. Yeah, but that's the thing, is, like, the older guys in the movie just feel like your local characters. If you go to a dive bar, it's the guys who are always there every Friday night. Oh, 100%, because it's also not crowded enough to clearly be, like, a fun Saturday night. This feels like hey, we all happened to be off work on a Thursday. And all the dudes who are here have no job. They just are at the bar. No, exactly. And it also has a weird moment in it, too, where it's elements that he builds up that never go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I think the transitioning shot, like where this segment ends, is what's fascinating and why it's so shocking, is because Jungle Julia is messaging some unknown, or
we know the name.
I think he's like a producer or something, someone that they all kind of know.
Yeah.
But it's got this like weird tenderish music over it.
And she's always like by herself looking longingly at her phone.
But the part I love about this is there's a dude in the back watching her, like kind of longingly watching her, and you know he's got no shot.
He's like not even like part of the story at all. He's just in the background, hanging out.
Exactly. And yeah, it's when Arlene goes to get smokes, when they kind of split up, is when the guy, like, for the split up as like someone just leaves the room for a minute.
Yeah.
Is when the guys are really creeps. But it's also this fun moment of like, and I think that's what's also off-putting, is those guys are being absolute creeps.
Yeah.
Saying like, oh, those sluts will drink anything. Once you get enough in them, get them their signature shot and they'll sleep with you. It's the old high school, like college style of like, this is the way to pick up chicks.
And like, it's like the worst way possible to pick up chicks. Mm-hmm.
But I think what it does is it really offsets Mike again, because the light revealing the car like they're being stalked, mixing in those horror elements. And that's the thing, is I don't even think I would say it's a full horror element. It's more of like a thriller kind of thing, where it hasn't gone for that horror yet. It's just that tension of like...
There's so much tension.
Exactly. But I think that's what's great about pairing those two, is that, yeah, Mike just happens to be there, but that's the thing. He still feels like he just happens to be there. It's these other guys that are offsetting his character.
Well, and the other thing I like about this movie is that it sets itself up as this thriller. It has very clear like ideas and bases from the horror genre. Mm-hmm. And so we're from the beginning being told like, oh yeah, remember, if you're with a group, especially if you're a bunch of girls, like if you're in the group, it's safer. And now we're breaking up, and oh yeah, look, oh you walked outside for a quick smoke, and look, we're already having problems. Oh, we're having to go to the bathroom, or you're gonna go check your phone to text Chris, whatever his face was on the phone. Yeah. Well, then it starts getting weird. Then the music starts getting creepy. Then the camera angles start to get a little funky.
Well, and I'm just thinking, I think there is a reference to Duel in this bar scene, the Steven Spielberg movie, where at the bar she's watching him. Kind of like how he's watching the other drivers in the bar. Yeah. Or in the diner, like, which one is it? And it's like, but this one is like, clearly it's the dude in the light blue blazer, or what is it? Tracksuit? Yeah. With Icy Hot.
And it's like, it's such a, like, painstaking, like, Kurt Russell sticks out in this movie so far, because not only is it Kurt Russell, and they've done nothing to disguise that this is Kurt Russell. Like, you are here to see Kurt Russell be the action-packed person of the movie. But on top of that, they make him kind of extra goofy. Yeah. And it leans into that horror element, or thriller movie element of, well, the bad guy has this, like, oh, well, he's a little quirky, but that, like, Icy Hot leather jacket isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just from his racing days, like...
Stuntman days.
Yeah, it's, he's just, that's just who he is, that's the jacket he always wears.
Yeah. I do enjoy a couple other things before we really get into Stuntman Mike. Is the one guy who's like really into Arlene. Mm-hmm. He tries so hard to be charming, but he's that really awkward guy where he's
so awkward.
The great line of, and he's trying to be nice of like, I'll hold the umbrella for you, basically. Mm-hmm. You won't get wet, I promise you. Yeah. And it's just like, she's like, oh, I've heard that before. Yeah. But it also gives her a chance to set her up as a strong woman, as she's the one setting the rules of like, sure, we'll do this, but we'll do it 6 minutes, it's on my turns, and that's it.
Yeah. And that's one of the interesting things is from the beginning, we have all of these building elements that we're used to in a horror and a thriller. And then we have these extra little bits thrown in as the breadcrumbs for later on to be like, well, yes, you're used to all these things, but the ladies in this film aren't what you're used to. Yeah. And it starts early. It gives these like little bits of like, no, they're here because they want to be and they are capable of it.
Yeah, Arlene's getting set up as the final girl, basically.
That's exactly what it feels like. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when we do finally get into Stuntman Mike, him eating the nachos is disgusting, but on top of that,
so good.
It did make me want to have nachos.
Same. I had literally just eaten dinner, and he's down here wolfing down nachos. Mm-hmm. And he's having nachos and then a virgin pina colada, I think. And I'm sitting here going, that does sound really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go for some Mexican food this week.
Exactly. Like, that's the weird thing about it is, like, because it is disgusting, it's like, okay, maybe it's so good that he just can't put it down, or maybe that's just how he eats. But
I don't know, but I have a feeling that, like, okay, so I have a theory that if food is just disgusting enough in a movie or a TV show, it makes it slightly more appealing. Teenage Mutant Ninja Pizza comes to mind.
The live action, or
it does not matter, because the animated one came first. It was droopy. It was greasy.
Oh, I haven't seen.
Okay, well, let me just tell you, in real life, that pizza would have needed to be eaten with a spoon. That's how, like, floppy that pizza was.
I think I have a recipe for pizza soup.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. The live action then tried to reproduce it with the extra cheese and the, needing, like, the extra big New York style slices. I have a feeling that food that looks just a little bit too cartoony, a little bit too over the top, is the food that people think looks a little bit better in a movie. Yeah,
because you're eating like an animal. It's like, in German you have Essen and Frissen, which Essen is to eat, and then Frissen is also to eat, but it's generally used to eat like an animal. So like, when someone's eating like a pig, du frisst.
So that's my, like, theory on, like, why these nachos look so good, because I wasn't hungry. And I'm not a huge, like, I like a nacho. I don't love a nacho.
Yeah.
I'm also not a pina colada person, but let me tell you, Stuntman Mike was selling me hard on these bar nachos.
Yeah.
They look good, won't lie.
I'm trying. On top of that, too, he's gross, but...
Yeah, well...
I think that's what also sets him apart, too, because even then, with the other guys being as creepy as they are, there are still shots of him looking over, which I know that's leaning towards, like, he's watching them. But it's also, maybe he's watching because he's noticed that Arlene's keeping an eye on him. She's being the creepy one to him.
The other thing that I think is such a nice little touch to add to Stuntman Mike is it's not necessarily hammered home, but it is mentioned so much it's impossible to, like, give up, that he is purposefully not drinking at the bar. He doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he doesn't do weed. He is sober-minded. And that adds a level of scariness to him. Like, there's no like excuse, because he's the killer from the beginning. The music has told us, that car has told us, we know what movie we picked, right? Like, his name is on the cover, and there's only one Kurt Russell. So, like, we know he's the bad guy from the beginning. We're setting him up for that. And he's stone cold sober this whole time. And we already know the car is a big part of it, because again, like, you've seen the cover of the movie, he's already driven up, he's already driven crazy. So, like, that leaves a part of the, like, oh, well, drugs and alcohol feel safer logic than just someone who's that crazy.
Yeah, it's like going to, or what I've been told of, I've never been to a straight edge show, but like, oh, you're supposed to be sober, but if you're not sober at a straight edge show, you're fucked.
Yeah, like, it adds a level of intensity and scariness that, like, it feels playful and jokey, because they're like, oh, Teehee, give him that virgin pina colada, isn't that so cute? I'll have a margarita.
But what it is
him always being in control.
Exactly. It's everyone else has a little bit of inebriation to them, but he's the one who's always calm-minded.
Exactly.
Yes. But I do also like them bringing in Rose McGowan as Pam, as a different character. Like, when you watch garbage movies and you see the same person in multiple movies, or like Takashi Miike flicks, and it's like, I've seen you in like 5 of his other movies.
Honestly, yes, it's really fun.
But it's like, it's also using her as a way to establish safeness of, like, well, I can give you a ride home. When are you leaving? It's like, oh, after I finish this, I mean, you can come if you want. If not, then you're fine. And she's like, well, what if you're a creep? It's like, I'm Stuntman Mike. Everyone knows me around here.
He's not technically wrong.
Yeah. But there's a line in this that I love, too, because it's just so stupid, but it shows, like, the pride of his craft. When Pam's like, okay, cowboy, I'm not a cowboy, Pam. I'm a stuntman. It's like...
It's so stupid. It's such a stupid thing to get caught up on, because, again, this is Texas.
Yeah. But it's also, it's a fun little bit that just like, okay, I get where you're going with.
You're really hammering it home.
Yeah, but I mean, there's good ebb and flow to this movie too, because after this, the night's kind of dying down. They have all gone out for like a breath of fresh air, all smoke, or a joint. And like, again, there's all like nods of like building up Jungle Julia as a character.
Yeah.
And my favorite, not in this movie. There's one over there, Zatoichi.
Yeah. Exactly.
Big old nerd Tarantino.
But well done.
But I also like bringing the way they put Micah in the front and center is that he's usually overlooked and no one knows the movies that he's bringing up either. But it's like, I feel you, Mike. Like, you're talking about all this back of house stuff that no one really cares about. They're more interested in the stars, the big names that are going to be in it.
Yeah, no one listens to the credits of a stuntman.
But I do also, this is where the night starts going bad in kind of a dumb way. It's when the dude Julia's texting doesn't respond, and Julia's like sending a message of like, you asshole, I hate you. That's like the weird turn of like their night not gonna go well.
That's true.
Or their weekend at this point, as far as we know.
That's true. Yeah.
But also, I think there's another part that builds up Mike as a scarier guy is not the fact that he's just sober, but he's also a listener.
That's true.
Because, I mean, the whole old war phrase of loose lips sink ships, he's a very good personification of that. Like, he's just kind of, like, listening into everything they're saying, too, and it's just, like, it makes it even a little bit more scarier when it's, like, he's very aware of how he appears of, like, they're, like, when Arlene says, you don't scare me, your car scares me, he's like, it's my mom's car. Like,
yeah.
It's trying to be funny, but it's like...
It's still a little much.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's good confronting him of just like, okay, this is her kind of challenging him of like, I don't trust you still. Like, I don't think you're a good guy.
It feels like we're getting to watch him hunt down his next victim, which is such an interesting point because we normally skip this part of the horror film or the thriller. Usually, like, the target's usually already picked, or it's, like, an opportunistic thing, right?
Or the killer's still kind of in the background. We've maybe seen him do other stuff, but we haven't seen him directly interact with the group of girls or the final girl.
Exactly.
But also, like, and also he's creepier, too, because he says, like, the line that Julia said of, like, if someone says it to you, you give them a lap dance. That's, like, when he says that, it's just like, okay, this is the oh shit moment of, like, he's a little too focused on them. Yeah. He pretended not to know who Julia was, but then he dropped that line to her.
Yeah, true.
And then then the turning around of it, of when they give her the way out, and she's like, it's already happened before. He's like, I don't believe you. And then he goes, like, through his whole John Wayne speech about his book in a very fantastic interpretation or imitation of John Wayne, I will say.
Yes.
And I like that line too. And everybody I ever meet goes into this book. And now I've met you. You're going in the book. Except I'm afraid I must file you under chicken shit.
And it's so painfully John Wayne, but also like so Kurt Russell.
It's the Marty McFly Back to the Future calling him a chicken and just getting absolutely pissed off. It's just the good building of taunting intention of like him taunting his victims of like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm gonna have you do all this. They're bending to his will at this point.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's adding layers to the villain that we know, because we don't get like any flashbacks of this in this movie. We're not necessarily expecting time jumps or anything. This is a great way to build up this supposed killer and like what's his MO, like what sort of people is he normally targeting, like how is he keeping track of this. He's got a little book. That's how he's doing it.
Well, or maybe he's just that smart, because that's the thing too, is like they're this isn't his first rodeo, so to say. Is
for sure.
He's meticulous. It's not as we see later on before we transition to the second half of this movie, it's not the Ted Bundy thing of you do this 500 times and the last time you forget where you put the wrench, and that's what gets you.
Not him. This man is meticulous.
Meticulous until it bites him in the ass.
Exactly. But that's kind of the running gag, though. That's the horror element.
I will say, solid lap dance scene.
It is very funny. Apparently was originally cut from the movie version. This is a DVD special.
Awesome.
Because apparently, much like its counterpart, Planet Terror, they were having fun with the whole, like, lost reel bit. the lap dance was the lost reel.
Okay, and they also had to cut down for time because they both had to be like an hour and a half to get in a 3-hour showing.
Granted, there's a few more scenes that were cut down. There was no like lost reel bit, they were just cut normal style from the movie. But apparently, like, if you went to go see this in theaters, lap dance would start, music would play, butt shake, lost reel scene would cut. Then we move to the next scene. We have the DVD version, so we get the full thing.
Yeah.
But, again, unlike its counterpart, everybody stays clothed, nobody gets too creepy, which is impressive for a lap dance with a murderer.
It's a public bar, though, too.
It is, but again, like, these movies are undeniably Grindhouse style. It would not have been too far out of a movie, like, wild imagination.
To, like, flash the titties
Yeah,
a little.
to do a little something, or, like, a little sneaky butt cheek. Like, these booty shorts are small, but they are not as small as I have seen.
Yeah, and I'm surprised there's not that much of a focus on feet, either.
No, I mean, there is later. But, okay, but that's something where I think, like, it's clear that Quentin Tarantino's doing the feet very intentionally. Because the feet are always paired with the cars.
Yes.
In this.
Oh, god damn it.
So, like, it's very obvious that, like, it is a love song to the cars and the stuntmen. Like, he is clear, he is using it very intentionally, and it's not just like oh, it's sexy, it's like, oh no, like, the context of it is all playing together. Granted, there is a bit of a foot thing. The piggies stay in the shoe, though.
Yeah.
The piggies stay in the shoe.
And there is a big difference between a foot and a shoe fetish.
Yes, there is. And you know what? We don't know Quentin's full life, so...
I'm sure there's probably
there's
some...
probably an overlap. I would imagine there's an overlap, but who am I?
It's like when women are wearing skimpy clothes and, like, you don't want to see everything because it's tantalizing. It's like, what could be under the boots? What are those piggies going to be like?
Granted, this is all from, like, a we're poking fun at him sort of situation. This is just a pretty standard, like, it's a bar lap dance. It's still fun. It still feels dangerous, but, like, in a double-edged sword sort of way, it feels like she has control and power in this situation because he only ever does what she makes him do. And yet, we know he is the predator, that he is the villain in this story. So it has this interesting, quote-unquote, dance, if you will, between these two characters and almost a power struggle, in a way. Granted, I do think it's hilarious that this was the cut part, because this is by far the sexiest scene in this movie.
Yeah, and, well...
I mean, there's some other later scenes that are meant to be, but there's a level of funniness to them. This one's just the normal, straight-up vanilla sexiness.
Yeah, just lap dance.
Yeah.
And, I mean, even then, the lap dance is cut short before closing time. And also, that's the other thing, too, is, like, we talk about them being mean girls, but they're a little bit too mean to Pam, and I know they explain it, but it's just, like, it's all that catty bullshit that makes the movie work, too, of, like, that kind of makes you feel a little bit even more sorry for Pam with what's about to happen.
Yeah, that's true. But again, it adds this mystery of how old they are, because it's cattiness that feels like high school bullshit or like early college age bullshit.
Yeah,
and yet these women are undefined age.
They're in the working field, or they're of the working age.
Yeah, so like it adds this level of like high school. Like, another horror element that we're so used to seeing in movies of, like, oh, it's the young, innocent girls, it's the ones who are putting themselves out there too early, like, that's their sin, that's the reason they're gonna die. You know, these girls are fine, they're being a little silly, they're being a little catty, but, like, it's that element that's playing through what normally would be a horror element.
Well, and even then, like, the way Tarantino does exposition after this, too, where...
True.
The car becomes scarier because we hear the word, it's death proof. And we get a quick, like, behind the scenes, like, car crashes and history lesson, which is nice. It is nice because I'm sure your standard audience isn't going to know what a death proof car is.
No, for sure.
But it's done in a way where it's like, okay, so she doesn't know what this is, so he has to explain what it is. It's not that whole part of, like, both people knowing about it and then having to explain to the audience what two characters know. It's teaching history to someone who doesn't know it.
Well, and it's also done in a way that, like, yes, he is showing her what it is because she genuinely doesn't know, but it is done in that annoying, like, it's filmed to that annoying kind of over-explanation that adds a level of assholeriness to him without necessarily going overboard. Like, he's over-explaining because he's, like, kind of, like, showing off a little bit, like, he's talking down to her, but at the same time as the audience, it is kind of necessary.
Yeah.
But it does add to his character in the same breath, which I like. It doesn't feel stupid.
Yeah, it makes it feel a little reassuring when he's like, oh yeah, there's a seat. I just don't usually have it installed.
Watching him put that seat in gave me the cackles. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to make it feel reassuring, but it's still kind of scary, and especially like when he looks and smiles at the camera. That's the good turning point.
Like an episode of The Office looks directly into your soul.
And then just winks of like, yeah, you know what's about to happen.
Because we do, because, okay, this, like, if it had been, like, as someone who, like, I know not everyone's big in the car world, but if it had been a normal racing seat sort of situation where, like, yeah, it clips in and out, and, like, it's got the extra straps because we're so cool, bullshit sort of thing, I would have been like, okay, sure. No. This is a bucket seat from a tractor welded onto a post that he slams into the ground and doesn't even clip it in or anyway.
No.
It's just hanging out down there. She has no backrest. She is just hanging out.
She has a little bit of a backrest.
Not really.
Yeah, it's minimal.
It is barely a backrest. She is essentially in a metal box, and there's a piece of plexi between the two of them.
Yep.
That is so freaking creepy.
Oh, it is. And especially, like, when they get into it of, like, which direction were you going? She's like, right. He's like, well...
I'm not.
Well, he's like, yep, sorry, it was a 50-50 chance, because, like, if I'd gone left, there would have been... And that's the thing, is, like, he was hoping for that little bit of tension of, like, them going a little longer, of, like, this could have been his night of, like, okay, well, now you'll worry about it, and then it'll take, like, another 10 minutes, and then it's, like, that's when he was gonna, like, really get into it. I was like, all right, I'll just tell you now. And honestly, her death is so brutal and rough. Like, it's just like, it's that one moment of like where she's like, help me, and it's like, it makes me think of like, call the ambulance, but not for me. This side, only one side of the car is death proof, bitch.
Yeah, I mean, it's very brutal, but again, like, this movie's been building up to it, and honestly, even though like you feel bad in her death, you do kind of get this false sense of security that, like, okay, well, she's the one who died. The other three have gotten away because they didn't choose to go with him, or he didn't target them more. Oh,
no, I don't think it's that at all, because immediately after he kills her, he's like, well, goddamn it, now I gotta track down my actual three, and he pulls out the photos of them.
Okay, but that's the part that, like, for me was like oh, shit, like, that was, like, the big reveal, because you know that she gets in this car, you see the plexi, and you're like, oh, she's dead.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like how is he gonna kill her, you now know.
Mm-hmm.
And that you think you've got his MO figured out, right? Because you're like, oh, well, you have to get them in the car to kill them.
Yeah.
That's how he's doing it. Well, now he has to go hunt down these other three. They didn't agree to get in his car. So now it's a new level of action that I wasn't necessarily expecting the first time I watched this.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying of, like, you were expecting it to be a more methodical, like, you didn't expect the part 2 that's gonna happen.
Exactly.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Because, yeah, that is... I agree, because the first time I watched that was kind of the same thing, too, is, like... Because we do get the music talk with the other group, more feet shot.
Oh, yeah, so much feet.
But when he like, does his, like, really fast driving, twirling his car around, and then shutting off the lights, it's like, oh, this is gonna get...
That's where it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You realize that this isn't going to just be a... kind of run-of-the-mill horror where, like, oh, we're going to be tracking people down, we're going to be getting them in the car, killing them, dumping them, repeat cycle. No, we're going to get creative here.
Yes.
This is more, like, this is where you realize that all of that's the prologue, that bit that you just learned about stuntmen and how cars work, you're going to actually be using that knowledge now.
Yeah.
And not just for, like, oh, that's how you beat someone up inside a car. That's not that creative. Any of us could have figured that out.
The car is
the weapon.
Yeah. It makes me think of, like, what's that Stephen King? Christine? Is that the one where the car's the...
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
But I am not a Stephen King expert by any means.
Neither am I. Morgan would probably hate on us right now.
I'm sure.
But I think it's that, or sometimes they come back. I think it's one of those two, where there's a killer car in it.
Well, and, like, okay, killer car has been done. We're not unfamiliar. But usually there's, like, a long chase. Part of the horror of it is this anticipation.
Yeah,
like a stalker sort of situation.
Well, that's the thing, is that is the car. The car keeps That's the thing, the car does keep showing up like that. The first time we see it, it's just waiting outside the convenience store.
Yeah.
The second time, it's just in the parking lot. It is doing that thing. It's just an inanimate object compared to the other two, where it's a revived or possessed car or driven by possessed people.
Well, and the other thing that I really like about this is we had this build that we were expecting, and then we immediately switch over to this being on the verge of an action film.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of an interesting like switch because normally you have to wait quite a long time for that anticipation to build. We've already had one death. We're barely in this movie.
No, we're like 45 minutes into this movie. Like, we're almost an hour through this movie. Like, that's the thing is, like...
It's just there's a lot of talking. The rest of the film picks up a little bit.
Yeah, but, like, the moment he, like, turns on the lights and then all the angles of the crash make it more gruesome...
It's crazy.
It feels like a wear your seatbelt or drive safe PSA.
100% it felt like okay, did you click it? Because otherwise you're gonna die. No ticket for you, just death.
Yeah, and unfortunately...
And also, now you are all going to learn to keep your feet in the car.
Yeah, and don't rest your feet up on the dashboard like I see a lot of people still doing.
That's true. Yeah, no, this movie was a great PSA for, like, how to sit properly in the car, something I'm very guilty of. I don't like sitting normally. But after watching this film, I did feel the need to sit upright with both feet flat on the floor.
Yeah, but also, that brutal tire to the face is just like...
Okay, and that was the other thing, is we were expecting... terrible crash, everyone died. I'm not gonna lie, I did foresee the foot being chopped off sort of thing, because, like, that felt right, you know?
They also did it in Planet Terror.
Exactly. Like, it felt over the top. We knew this was a Grindhouse film. Like, we knew what we were getting into. I was not expecting the creativity in which we could kill all these characters in one car, each a different way.
Yeah.
Like, how creative is this?
Yeah.
And then it ends with a crash to the bad guy car. Yeah. Which I think is an interesting, like, switch on us.
Well, and I love that they're like, he's like, okay, we have one shot. This is how I want it done. I want him to land on the hood. And I want it to spin. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we can try. I don't think we can get it 100% that way. But when you see the behind the scenes and it does it and it stops like almost exactly where he wanted it to.
It managed to be perfect.
Yeah, the one thing that I won't say Myers this scene.
Sure.
If we were still playing the bingo, free card for you, but we're done with that.
There's a Wilhelm scream. I heard it loud and clear.
Yeah.
And it's not even hidden amongst other screams.
No.
I also don't know which character is supposed to have made that scream, because again, there's all beautiful young women in the car, and one of them is doing the Wilhelm scream.
But it feels like, I think it works too because it makes it feel low budget, where they only had like these sound effects that they could use.
And honestly, I kind of am glad that it toned it down a little bit, especially because, and normally I don't like doing hard comparisons because movies should stand by themselves, but this movie was meant to be paired with Planet Terror, who was over the top. Their special effects were very cool, but like very clear and obvious. Like, it was very easy to be like, oh, we've made some goop for people.
Yeah.
Fun. I like that. It's not until later that, like, the goop sort of, like, shows up in this film. And yes, the leg is a little silly, but it's so fast, you almost miss it. Mm-hmm. Having that little extra, like, oh yeah, remember, this is supposed to be a low-budget, low-effort movie, kind of adds this little, like, relief to, like, okay, I still have a good bit of this movie to go.
Yeah.
But this is not the end of it, because, again, the fact that this man lives is not necessarily impressive, because he told us he would.
Yeah, he's told us that his car is death-proof. He's going to survive the entire ordeal.
But I do think this is something interesting where, like, the movie goes ahead and proves to you that death-proof does not mean damage-proof.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I think a lot of other car movies don't bother to do till the end, right? Because the car being the weapon, you kind of need the weapon to make it. This car is totaled. He is not driving this anymore.
No. Well, and that's the thing, too, is, like, even he doesn't, like, fully get out of it unscathed, because we cut to the Planet Terror Hospital, which...
True.
While I know Planet Terror was shown first, it makes it feel like Death Proof should have been watched first.
I agree.
Because the hospital's still intact, and there's the reference to Jungle Julia's death.
It honestly would have made a little bit more sense for them to be reversed. I think part of the reason that they were flipped was because original screenings... Planet Terror had so much bad criticism, whereas somehow Death Proof's only real complaint was the pacing, which I'm kind of surprised at. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy both movies. I have many critiques of both. So, like, why? No one really knows, and I don't think anyone working on this cared enough to really tell us.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing, is it was an experimental style of filmmaking. Just
very true.
Slightly experimental for mainstream.
Well, and slightly experimental specifically for Quentin Tarantino. I would argue that Rodriguez spent a lot of time being very experimental.
Yeah. Yeah. But the one thing, like, I do, like, I like that it makes it feel like one small universe. I do kind of wish that Planet Terror had, like, maybe one or two more references to Death Proof, but...
Yeah, that, or just, I mean, it would have been really easy for us to have driven by several of the, signs or something in this movie, like having one of the signs we drive by be the military base 2 miles away would have been very funny.
Yeah.
But, like, I get it, like, honestly, while they both helped each other on these movies, neither one was directly involved in both. They were just planning on a simultaneous go-together sort of situation, so...
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But I also do like, it feels like even though it's set roughly around Austin, it also feels small-towny too, where...
Definitely.
He gets off lucky with light injuries, but even though the cops are like it was homicide and not a damn thing we can do because the girls were high and drunk and he was sober, again playing into the fact that he's putting on this character.
Yeah, he planned all this.
It's a good way to cover up killing Pam, though.
Yeah, that's true, because now it looks like she just died in the car crash.
Exactly. But I love that the shitty cop work feels like small-town shitty cop work.
It sure does. And again, it's bringing back that 70s vibe that honestly this movie was kind of lacking.
Exactly, because they're chalking it up to it being a sex thing. And if we know for anything from true crime, anytime it's a sex thing involved at all, the cops don't want anything to do with it.
Somehow, magically don't have the time of day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but again, it's bringing that 70s flair back, which honestly, I kind of liked how Planet Terror handled the over 70s-ification of it. Felt really nostalgic. I was kind of missing it in this movie, so I'm glad to see more hints.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, hints, but we saw the cell phone.
Yeah, and the cell phone place... There's too much technology in this one to ignore.
There's an iPod coming up.
Yeah, and granted, Planet Terror I know has plenty of technology, like there's no world where that's actually in the 70s, but it feels like a low-effort try, like at least an homage to the 70s, whereas this one doesn't feel like we went too hard.
Yeah, because we've got kind of a muscle car, and I think it's the car that makes it, it's the two cars that make it feel like it's supposed to be in the 70s.
I agree.
Yeah, but I do like that they set up the second part of the movie of, well, even though we can't prove it, he ain't doing it in Texas.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is then when we cut to Lebanon, Tennessee, 14 months later.
And honestly, the thing that really impressed me was I saw 14 months later, I went, wow, this man rebuilt that car really fast.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It comes back and it does. It's almost, that's the thing.
It's almost exactly the same.
It just doesn't have the skull on the front.
No, which, maybe for the best because he's moved locations. Mm-hmm. That or he lost the stencil for the skull. Not sure.
Yeah, and there's one thing I don't get in this with the black and white transition. I think what it is, it's as a way to off-put you, like to distract you from the fact that he removed the grain effects from the second half of this movie.
Yeah, honestly, that kind of the only logic I could think of too.
Or it might have been a callback to like Kill Bill of like the reason they had to cut. That might be it because Kill Bill, the reason they went to black and white, supposedly, I haven't done my research on Kill Bill, but supposedly it was so that way they could get an R rating because it was too bloody of a movie. That's why that goes to black and white, whereas this one, it might be a joke because the gruesome scene wasn't in black and white, and then the next scene is. Yeah,
maybe the other, reasoning I could figure out was maybe it was meant to be more, version of film damage, but honestly, it doesn't seem to have a whole lot of rhyme or reason, but I don't know, it's over fast enough that you kind of forget about it here coming up real quick.
Oh yeah, well, because we're introduced to another batch of beautiful women. Yeah. I mean, he also does a good job of setting up parallels between both of these groups, almost making it feel like they're just another set of victims waiting to happen because one of them is she made out with a guy and sent him home and her friends are calling her a prude.
Yeah, I mean, more than that, they spend an aggressive amount of time in this movie talking about this poor woman's lack of a sex life.
Yep.
But honestly, it's done in a way that feels like this is a true group of friends. They all happen to work in movies together in one way or another. And they're having this, fun, special weekend out because they all happen to not be working at the same time.
Yeah.
The other thing that I like is that he has changed up how he picks a victim. Because he's had to change locations. He's not the local known at the bar anymore. He can't, be creepy there. Now he's got a pair of binoculars and he's hunting down people with cars that he likes. That or he's picked them ahead of time and is now stalking them. Hard to say.
He's not because, okay, so there's a couple things. he sees them in the parking lot. That's the first time.
That's true.
Because this is where I get Winstead's foot, which...
more feet.
Maybe someone else's stunt foot. I don't know if they do their own footwork in his movies.
I believe they are their own feet in those movies.
That would be funny, though. If I'm working on Tarantino, I'm not showing my feet. Stunt feet only.
I've heard that people do that. I don't know for sure anyone does it, but I've heard the rumor that that's a thing.
Yeah. But it allows Mike to be an absolute creep now with touching the feet. Because
oh my god, so creepy.
Well, because now as an audience, we don't need to see him hold back anymore.
That's true. And then, it adds a level of, like, uncertainty for Mike is, like, who is he picking and why? Because, again, it feels almost random that he's picked them. Like, is this chance that he just ran into them? Or has he been stalking them long enough to know that they're stunt doubles? Because he's also a stunt dude.
No. So here's the thing. He doesn't. That's
true. He doesn't yet.
I'll get into that in a bit. So I think it's just 100% chance. Is like he just finds this group of pretty girls, and that's his thing. Is he hunts groups of girls. He doesn't go after just one. He hunts groups of them.
And again, though, it does feel a little bit like maybe this is out of his normal MO. We had the book earlier. It felt very methodical. He felt like he was really planning things out. This one feels different than his normal setup.
Well, no, and it's also because he's a lot more bold with this one too. Because
he licks the feet immediately.
Well, we also haven't had we've had 2 minutes to introduce these girls. Mm-hmm. We haven't had the whole 15, 30 minutes to introduce the other group. And immediately to get their attention, he's revving his engine. He's a lot more bold.
Yes.
It feels like when serial killers start to enter their berserker mode of they've gotten away with it for so long, they think they're untouchable. He got away with it completely last time, even though he was the only suspect.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think the other, big part of it is it also feels like he's specifically out to impress these ones because the only real evidence for this isn't till later, but it feels like he has this fake connection that he has made up where they're car girls, I'm a car guy. This is meant to be.
Yeah.
Sort of like bullshit.
Yeah, kind of. But that's the thing is he doesn't know. He's just...
Yeah, that evidence isn't till later, but that's the vibe given.
Exactly. Also, I do like the couple little Easter eggs he throws in that the ringtone is the whistle from Kill Bill.
It is cute.
And also, I like that Stuntman Mike has a slight costume change.
But he'd kind of have to, wouldn't he? He's got to lay low. He's not laying that low. Everyone knows who he is, I'm sure, but...
Yeah, well, we don't know.
He's had to ditch the icy hot.
Yes, exactly.
But also, I do think that this is another attempt to be a new version of himself. Because this, the other one, everyone knew him. He'd been around forever. It was obvious that, people introduced him as the retired stuntman guy.
No, he's still the stuntman.
He's still Stuntman Mike. But, it felt done in that, tired sort of way. The new costume and the new car feels like a new version of it. He's reimagined himself sort of situation.
He's just basically wearing his same outfit as Snake Plissken from Escape from New York.
Yeah, it just, now that you point it out, yeah, it does kind of look like Snake. But honestly, again, this is a Tarantino film. Maybe that's intentional. We'll never know.
Yeah. Oh no. Well, if he had commentary, we might know, but
at the same time, I'm kind of glad we don't, because if that had been truly the logic behind it, I would have been like, oh, that's too far.
Yeah.
But just maybe it's a coincidence. I kind of like.
Yeah, and I do have one question, and maybe you can answer it as someone who's into fashion a little bit.
Maybe we'll see.
For us male watchers,
yes,
what is up with Italian Vogue, and why are they so gung ho to drop out $40 for it?
Okay, so this is where this movie does weird time nonsense. Again, this movie is aggressively in the 2000s. The phones, the technology, and yes, the cars are older, but just the 2 or I guess 3 main cars are older. Everyone else's car is normal early 2000s car on the road.
Yeah.
Magazines, as I'm sure you know, used to be a much bigger deal. They had actual publications and weren't just one big ad. Italian Vogue is it's a big brand. I mean, it's Vogue on top of being the Italian production of it.
I know Milan's a huge fashion capital.
100%. And so these are girls who are, I'm assuming, since they all work on movies and 2 of them work in hair and makeup. So I'm assuming that to them that this feels this is what they follow. I'm sure there's a makeup artist that's probably the big name. And Vogue probably wouldn't have been hard to get in Tennessee. the Italian edition of Vogue, I'm sure, is a lot harder to get.
It's because it's the two girly girls in this scene and not the stunt women.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, like, but this is where it's like, okay, yes, 2007 magazines were still a thing. The cell phone technology, maybe, if we're being generous, is like early 2000s.
Oh, I was buying Shonen Jump during this era.
Oh, sure. Like, if you were super, like, into a specific thing, you could find magazines for it, but this was definitely the beginning of the death of magazines. So, like, you had to be really invested in a specific, like, hyper-specific, very high publication version, otherwise you were getting junk by this point.
Okay.
And so, like, maybe you collected a few of them. I think the magazine trend kind of lasted maybe 5 more years, and then, like, from then forward, it, like, you really gotta be looking for, like, a very high-end magazine.
Okay, actually,
But 70s, 80s, 90s magazines, like, that would have made a lot of sense.
I think I understand it a little bit because I still have my first Shonen Jump from like 2003 when my friend gave it to me.
Yeah.
In Europe, I didn't have access to a lot of bookstores that had like manga and stuff. I had whatever the base had, so like I had a handful of selection. So Shonen Jump was me catching up on Bleach, Naruto, all that stuff. Okay, I understand it now.
Yeah, and like Vogue would have been like the nice big overview of like all the big fashions, as opposed to picking a hyper-specific fashion that like probably the general audience of this movie wouldn't have understood. So like this would have been the end of the death, which is why I say like the time is being a little weird here. This would have made more sense for a 70s, 80s, or 90s set movie.
Okay.
But like it's still definitely a possibility in early 2000s that like these like women are super into Vogue still.
Okay. Getting the most latest one.
Yeah, granted, I understand some people are still into it, but you have to understand you are a niche hobby now, and you know it.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be that way.
Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, people used to collect them.
It was just a part that I guess I didn't understand without like really trying to think too far into it.
Well, and like, it is kind of confusing, because honestly, we spend more time with the two stunt women. And they're definitely written as the more, like the more aggressive, the definitely, like, their whole thing is cars. Like, they're, and, like, that's, I mean, it's perfect. That's part of the movie. The other two, like, barely mention that, like, oh, I don't have any makeup today, and her actress, her hair isn't needed for today. That's why we all have the weekend off. It's like a throwaway line.
Yeah.
It's barely in there. So, like, yeah, it's something to probably be maybe hammered home a little better later, but it's a shitty movie, so whatever.
Exactly. It's, in the words of Rubber, no reason.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, this one has a little bit of reasoning. Like, it's Quentin. We can't, say that he didn't think of nothing here.
Yeah, there's probably a reason he wrote it.
But if we'd had more time and more film, I'm sure that would have been explained better.
But we do get to see Mike's process of getting his pictures, so, which I do wonder is, like, did they not see the photos in the last group, or did he throw those out the window or something like that?
Unknown, I don't remember.
I mean, it's all, again, resetting up all the girls, or this group again. It's an all-girls trip, setting up Abernathy as a safe girl, Lee as the pretty but little gullible, little ditzy.
Yeah.
And Zoe and Kim as the thrill-seeking car girls.
Yes.
And also setting up, like, there's dialogue that he sets up that feels like one-off liners that are used later on, where Zoe's has, like, the one quirk is like she gets into situations that should kill her, but she lives.
And again, like just really an homage to the stunt man, especially the second half.
Well, that and also more carsploitation, because the reason they're even out there is because she found specifically this in this one news article or this one yellow page.
Yep.
That there's the car from Vanishing Point, specific make, model, engine, everything.
1970s Dodge Charger. Challenger, not Charger. Challenger. Sorry.
Okay, that makes much more sense of like, oh yeah, your girly girls were gearheads. That sets up this difference. That's why the Italian Vogue was important in the first half. Okay.
Yes.
And I also like that they're like, you haven't seen what's Vanishing Point? And they're just like, how fucking dare you not know this movie?
Again, a 70s movie. So like this movie is again playing like with time, because they say it like, oh, it's the hot new thing. But this movie seems to be set in 2001, well,
that's when it feels more accurate, is because they're talking of it like it's a classic. So that's the thing, is like it's a classic car movie to them, and why this thing is a hard thing to find and a treasure for them.
Sure.
But then I do like that when we immediately go on to the redneck dude. He's a good creep as well.
He is creepy.
We get the reveal to play Ship's Mask, sweetening up the deal of like leaving their friend behind, and they have their one safe girl because She has good sense because she's a mom.
Okay, great. I love that.
Well, I love that.
That's the stupidest logic, but that's what they go for.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be like she has... The reason they're allowed to do the stupid shit they do is because they're single. They don't have to worry about a kid at home if they die doing this stupid stunt.
It feels like the dumb stuff that other stunt people have probably told to Quentin Tarantino of like, here's my logic for why I can do this. And it's like, okay, that's not good logic. People would miss you if you died.
Yeah. Well, it's just showing like the recklessness in their lives and stuff. But I do like that they're like, come on, you gotta have me in there. Okay, here's the rules. Shut up. Don't ask questions. Just follow what we're doing.
Yeah.
And also, like, she's like, oh, cool. And I like her little happy walk away, too.
Mm-hmm. But, okay, from here to the end of the movie, each action that these women take leads us to the inevitable conclusion that this will be a different film than the first half of this movie.
Yes.
Because not only is it set up that, they're gearheads, these girls are into cars, and they're stunt girls, they know what they're doing, like, they're also willing to live on the edge, but they have this one chick in the back seat who, like, they are willing to not be too stupid because they have her. She is there to make sure they go home. In a way.
Yeah, she's kind of like their safety net.
Exactly.
Sense of reason, their consciousness.
Yeah.
And also, I like that her cell is so simple. And, like, the guy who plays the redneck plays it perfectly.
Almost no lines, just stares blankly ahead. It's done well.
Yeah, but also, like, her leaving their friend there of, like...
So mean.
Oh, it's awful. And just, like, I do wonder what happens to her down the line, because it's like...
They don't come back for her, I don't think.
Well, they're also implying that she's a porn actress, and, like, oh, yeah, she'll suck you off.
Yeah, like, they're just like, okay, bye, have fun! And just drive away. And, yeah, if you, like, stop and think for a minute, by the end of this movie, they're not driving back. There's no car to drive back with.
Oh, there's a car to drive back.
Yeah. They're going to have to go back and pay in cash.
Yeah.
In full for this car. That's how bad it is.
One of them's doing well.
Oh, boy.
I also do like the little comedy of her audible gulp.
So stupid. Again, it's adding this comedic level to an otherwise very serious scene.
Yeah, well, it's not a serious scene. That's the thing, is like the seriousness of this movie doesn't come till after when they're doing the test driving.
That's true. That's when they start getting stupid.
Yeah, but also that's the thing too, is like when we start to this half of the movie with Zoe Bell, it's crazy knowing that they're all doing their real stunts, and like when the cars are almost...
Wild.
Yeah, well...
Wild to me that they are doing this in real life.
And they're doing it at like 30, 50 miles an hour, and then in the big chases, they're going 100 and 100, or 80 and 100 miles an hour. And we'll get into like how crazy this is compared to the last carsploitation we do of this season.
Facts.
And it's all fun and games for them until Mike shows up.
Being the mean asshole he is. He's just here to have a good time on his terms.
20 minutes of action, which it's even more danger because he's surprise ramming them. Like, they're on the road. It's not the boom surprise, because we know Stuntman Mike's deal already.
We do.
This
is different.
Yeah, we don't have the need for the shock of, okay, he's just going to turn on his lights at the last minute and ram right into him.
Yeah, he's not using his car in the same way we've seen him, which does imply that he's made improvements to his car.
No, or hasn't.
Or hasn't. We don't know.
This is just another one of his games to them of like...
100% this is a game to him. Yeah, because he's giggling. He giggles through this scene.
Uh-huh. And when Zoe Bell like flips and goes face forward onto the car, it's like, oh, that is not a good position. Also, I'm sure there's wires and stuff too, but
I hope so.
You can tell she's strong too. It's like, okay, this is hella cool.
This movie not only like you can tell it's low budget, but it feels low budget enough to wonder how many safety precautions were actually taken. Yeah,
it makes me think of like in Evil Dead, there was famous talks of like they actually shot a loaded shotgun at the camera, and it's like,
maybe don't do that. Don't do that.
I mean, they're low budget, but
yeah, but okay, but that's the sort of stupid stuff that a low budget film does. And granted, we know this is Quentin Tarantino directing. He's been directing for ages at this point. And all of these people are experienced. So, like, they know their limits, they know what is safe, hopefully. And there's no reason for any of them to, like, prove themselves with any, like, unnecessariness, right?
Yeah.
But this movie is shot in such a way, and it is done, like, it's set up and presented to you in such a way that, like, it feels like if you turn on the news after watching this to find out, like, oh, yeah, that was all real and like 5 people died.
Yeah, it's based off a true story compared to the higher percentage of eating roadkill.
Yeah, like that would not have surprised me if they had like, if one of the interviews had been like, yeah, actually like 2 stunt guys actually got seriously maimed in this movie. And like that would not have surprised me. Granted, no one, as far as we can tell, like there's no reports of anyone getting hurt. And it seemed like everyone was perfectly safe and well within their like stunt abilities.
Yep.
But the way this movie looks, the way that you know that these cars are actually driving and that we're just on a boom arm here, terrifying.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's
because she like does 360s on the hood of this car. She's hanging on by one arm at multiple times. She's facing the wrong way multiple times.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Oh, it's such a great build, and especially like when she crashes and gets tossed into the ditch, you kind of forget that last minute, that one little line of like, oh, she always ends up finding situations that should kill her.
They already were crying, and I was like, ah, damn, we lost one. And then she's like, I'm fine.
Yeah, but I also like this too because this is the part where Mike's like, oh, that was a good time, I'll see you later. He's having
a great time and is like thinking they're having fun too, and then the gun.
Exactly.
I lost it. My husband's over here trying to play his stupid little mech game, and I'm like, Brian, it's turned. This is no longer a horror film. This is a revenge story. Yeah. And I loved it. This was like the shift that I was expecting from a high-level director and writer like Tarantino, and was not expecting though.
Yeah, it takes the twist of usually it's that final girl to fight back or eventually get away, but instead now he's on the run and there's a good twist to the music.
Yes.
And I appreciate that, like, so when they equip with like the steel bars and straddling the car like it's a goddamn Mad Max flick.
It looks so cool. It feels like they're truly like, you can feel the emotion and rage from them in such a great sense. Because it's not necessarily acting, it's just the way the film is shot, right?
Yeah.
Like this is all beautifully like pieced together. The music here is killer. And then the best part of all of it is you've watched Mike be so full of himself for this whole movie that now that he's been shot, he is this wimpy little, oh, woohoo, like I gotta open my glove box and take a swig because it hurts so bad. It's like
safe in his death-proof car until confronted.
Yes, and so because there's this level of like whiny bitchery to him, you get the pleasure of watching these women now hunt him down.
Yeah, and this is exactly why it's great too, is because he picked the wrong people. That's what it is he's used to picking women that are unsuspecting and not weak. Like, the other ones are strong in their own right.
But they weren't capable of withstanding car crashes.
Exactly. Whereas, like, these are, he took on stunt women.
He picked the wrong one, which is why, even though this all comes together much later than when these women are introduced and when, essentially scene 2 happens, it's why it feels like he was trying something totally new. He'd gotten too big for his britches, so to speak, and wasn't following his normal formula. Yeah. And that's where he messed up, which kind of is a nice little nod to like how a lot of these like crazy psychos get caught, is they get too comfy.
Yeah, well, it's also like here's the other thing too, is like this for me is good writing for girl power.
100%.
And I'll get into it a little bit later of like why there's more to it, because the way they end it too is great too. I agree. The chase scene's great. We have the classic jump across traffic that, even though I'm not a car movie guy, you see it in everything.
And the way that this one is shot, it feels very raw and dangerous, because there's one scene where a normal pedestrian car like passes them, and even my husband was like, what is that car doing in this film? And I was like, they probably didn't close the highway. That's probably a normal ass car.
Yeah.
And even though they look like they're doing 100 or something, they're probably only doing 50.
Only doing 50. Usually at those scenes, you usually shoot at like maybe 25 at the most.
Yeah, so like I'm sure they're going too slow for the highway that they did not close.
Yeah. And you overclock it, which we'll get into overclocking in the next, or in our last review of the season.
Exactly.
But there's also like there's this. It feels just that they're being menaces to the rest of the world now too.
They are completely focused on destroying this man.
And they're like, even when like they split off on the road and he's like, they're taking the high road and he's on the low road.
And he thinks he's won because he's like lost him.
Yeah, it's good showing that the audience is over and reversing like what you would usually think of in a horror film or action or like a flick like this, where usually it's the people on the low, or it's the people you want to survive on the low ground, and you're like, oh, but they're still being hunted. It's just behind where they can't see.
Like, you are rooting for the reverse to happen in this film. So instead of, like, you want them to escape, this time you want Mike dead.
We get a great flip as well. And then just Whiny Dude hit his beat down is, like, the roundhouse kick to the hammer kick at the end and the freeze frame jump. It's just like...
And then they all just stand around and punch him in a circle, which is beautiful. But also, the entire time this is happening, and, like, we've brushed over it because it's a car chase scene, there's not a whole lot of, like, bits to pull apart, but it's impressive drive work the entire time.
Yeah.
And, like, especially if you are interested in, like, the old, like, CGI free stunts, especially cars, this is such a cool piece to break down and see, like, where the fake jumps were, where the fake, like, breakthroughs and walls were.
Yep.
Because they go through just about every scenario they can in this to, like, really show off the stunts and, like, really show off the car. Because as far as I can tell, there's maybe only one of these cars. I don't think they had a backup car because the damage looks accurate and consistent this whole time. You can tell there's barely, if not any, CGI happening. Like, maybe a little bit here or there for some dust or for some clouds, but, like, for the most part, you get a beautiful, raw car chase scene.
Yeah, and even then, I don't think it's CGI. If they did anything, it'd be After Effects. But no, that's the thing, is, like, everything is done for real in this. And
it's so refreshing and fun to see.
And that's why, especially going through the special features, that first featurette, being all about the stunt people and the stunts is, like, why this stands out as, like, as buying a DVD, if I could recommend buying one. Yeah, exactly.
It's so good. And, like, this is, I think, also the perfect pair to Planet Terror, because where Planet Terror used practical effects for a standard horror with its makeup and its effects and its, like, gore, this one used the same idea but in reverse as far as, like, what we're gonna do for stunts and car work.
Yeah, kept it low budget by keeping it real.
And honestly, it looks so cool. This movie is a lot of fun, especially this last, like, 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Could watch this part over and over again.
Yeah, and I'll get into, like, my thoughts on some of this movie, but...
Sure.
That also, real quick, because I had to look this up.
Okay.
The pictures of the women at the end, they're test images.
Fantastic. I love that. That's such a low budget way to do this.
Such a nerdy little thing to, like, add to the end of the movie, but that's what those are, because I'm like, who are these women? Were these women that they were thinking of casting? Were these other stunt women that he wanted to showcase?
Oh, wonderful. But it's, like, a nice little impliement that, like, it wasn't just it wasn't just two instances of Mike. Mike has been a long-standing, like, attacker, and they just happened to end him.
Yes, and that's why I think the ending of this movie is so great, is I think what Tarantino does in creating strong female characters and girl power is personified in this movie. I mean, don't get me wrong, Inglourious Bastards. Kill Bill's great too in its own right, but... I
mean, Kill Bill is, like, one of the prime examples of female power.
But it's a different kind of genre too, but...
it's a different type of woman too.
Well, and the one common issue I come across with a lot of movies that don't lean into the differences between men and women, I think that's the biggest thing, is we've got caught up in this whole feminist movement of women can do anything man can do, style over girl power, basically. Where it's like, we're trying to do it exactly as our male counterparts when you don't lean into what people can do or what different people can do. And we don't see it in this one, because the first group of girls are strong because they have each other. Arlene knows what she wants and she sets her boundaries up early.
Sure.
Makes the men respected. The second group are kick-ass because they're stunt women looking for revenge, and Stuntman Mike gets his ass kicked because, as far as we know, he's used to picking on everyday women. And on top of that, they have to pick up weapons to beat his ass. They're using their car as their weapon. They're not just... They
shoot him as well.
Exactly.
Which I'm all for. If you have the technology.
Exactly. It's not that they're weak, but they have to rely on other tools to really get to him.
Well, and the thing that I like is that this is a wonderful example of, like, where having like, the commonality between them is that they are both stunt people. One of them just happens to end up being the better one. And part of that is because they have a group of them. They have two people, one to lean out the window and beat his ass. Yeah. And then they have their good luck charm in the back seat, who also eventually punches him.
Yeah, the power of friendship helps them survive.
And granted, I'm not saying that is the solution for every single movie, right? But, like, for a horror-based film that is trying to flip the scenario on its head, where normally this group of girls would have been picked off, and normally they're picked off one by one. We've already beaten that by normally he picks all of them off in one big go.
Mm-hmm.
And now having the chase be flipped and this is how he dies, a fantastic flip.
Well, and I talk about it in our Silent Hill episode too, is that in the way Tarantino twists it too, is usually it's the women characters who act the manly, quote unquote manliest, are the ones who get killed off. And it's up to the final girl who's usually personifies like the more feminine qualities, and that's why she survives. He twists that in this one, where it's like, okay, yeah, their girls are weaker, but they're still kick-ass even when they have weapons and are on a mission to kill this guy.
Yeah, no, it is something that Quentin Tarantino has done multiple ways in multiple different stylings too, because his Kill Bill character is different than these women, right? There's not the same styling of, murderous woman.
Highly trained in a different way.
Exactly, and I like how in all of his films, his ability to write both the villain and also his victims is such an interesting and more complex than having just a one note or two note, because honestly that ends up being the main complaint, is that you don't want a character who is such a victim that they are boring or they don't feel believable when they turn around and become the victor in the end.
Yeah, you
want a full three-dimensional character, and this movie is not long. And yet we still have all of these characters fully well-rounded, and they're only in half this movie. They're not even the same characters from the beginning.
No, exactly. And that's the thing is, being quickly to establish characters. It's all about the tools that you have instead of your innate abilities. Because you look at any of, the old Shaw Bros movies or martial arts movies, look at the one-armed boxer, the one-armed swordsman, the one guy who's supposed to be, the strongest of the group, gets his arm cut off by a woman because she's wielding the tool right, or incorrectly, or not correctly, dangerously. But that's the thing is, again, it's the tools you have and how you use them instead of the innate physicality that you see in a lot of action movies.
Yes, and I do think that's also where this movie does a nice job of towing that line between an action film and a horror film. It pulls all of these elements and expectations from a horror film and yet applies action logic and rules to them, which makes this honestly a very nice and interesting piece to watch, because you don't really know what's going to happen at any moment. Each time a twist and turn happens, you feel justified, you feel like you enjoy it, but you don't necessarily foresee it coming.
Yeah, no, exactly. It just shows that, and honestly, that's the thing, if you want to learn to write dialogue, and not that I have a lot of experience with this, but Tarantino movies, he takes the most mundane things and makes them interesting.
And the other thing that is honestly really nice is there's no prologue to this. The action is a nice, and I know this was a huge criticism when this came out, was people weren't a fan of the pacing. They felt it was very slow at the end, and then a drop off or very slow at the beginning, a big drop off at the end. I disagree. I love the slow and steady build where we get a ramp up from dialogue-based, character-based, into full action. I feel like it's a nice ending.
Yeah, and again, on a rewatching of it, I like it a lot more. The first time I watched this, I was confused. I didn't care for it. I'm like, why would Tarantino do this movie?
Sure. It doesn't feel like anything of his other stuff.
Exactly. Well, it's always the odd one out of people oh, I know it exists, I just haven't seen it. But also it's weird because it's almost two movies in its own right of the first one is over an hour long.
Yeah.
But it feels like they're okay, well, we have enough we don't have a full for a second movie. So we're just going to shove these two movies, the first movie and what should have been the sequel, together.
And honestly, I'm okay with that. Because while I love an action film and will watch them quite happily, one of the main complaints is that you kind of get teased along throughout the whole film of dialogue, action, and that's fine for a lot of films, but it is kind of nice to see just a nice clean ramp up and drop end to an action film. I don't have to worry about being teased along. I don't have time to necessarily think about what's next once the action happens, because it's all fast paced and the end is coming quickly. This, for me, is a really nice change of pace. Not necessarily what I want to see every single time, and I get that this isn't a normal Tarantino styling, so I get why people were upset when it first came out. I see why the criticism was this from this director.
Yeah.
But for an action horror film, I'm loving this. This is probably the way I'd like all of my action horrors to be paced.
More action than horror.
But only for that last 30 minutes. You get plenty of build from that beginning. You get so much understanding of these characters, even though half of the cast gets replaced.
You also kind of get a second life to the killer, where we get to see him actually kind of trying to, like, fully in his element compared to the subtle stalking that he has to do early on.
Again, this is wonderful character building with honestly minimal effort put into, like, showing extra. We don't get, like, 18 kills. We don't have a part 2 or a part 3. This is all contained nicely in one film.
Yeah, we potentially only have 6 deaths in this movie.
That's true.
Yeah,
But you get a full range of what this character does and where he ends up. You don't have flashbacks necessarily, like, it feels continuous, but you feel like you've gotten a good grasp of what's happening.
Yeah, we don't have to know what happened to their friend that they left behind to suck dick.
No, because, again, like, granted, in the grand scheme of things, like, for an action horror film, it doesn't really matter. They'll probably have to hobble back, they'll pay in cash, and they'll not be friends anymore. And that's okay, because that's the kind of movie this is. It's supposed to be stupid.
No, exactly. So, Chris, at the end of Death Proof, what do you rate it on our good, bad, weird scale?
This one doesn't hit enough weird for me to fully give it a weird. I think this is just a good bad.
Okay.
And the reason I'm giving it as bad is because it is purposefully bad. There is clear intentional bad inserted into this movie from Tarantino. And I don't think a lot of people necessarily, like, are big fans of it, but it is, like, the entire genre, both of these movies were meant to be bad. They started off being like, hey, you want to make a shitty film.
Yeah.
I think they did it, so I think this is a good bad for me.
Okay. I can't lean towards the bad side of it.
Sure, I see it.
I think it's good weird on my side because it's good action. It's got a lot more to it than the first time I watched it.
Yes.
The reason I lean weird is because there's some of the little bits he does with the editing. It's mainly the editing stuff. It is
a lot of editing.
Instead of where Planet Terror really embraced the Grindhouse and overused real.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get why he adds it into the first half other than to tie it into the first movie or into Planet Terror, and also, like, the little couple jump backs that he does is just like, okay, whatever, and then the black and white shots, just like, all that stuff just doesn't work for me, and it's just a weird editing thing that doesn't add to the movie like it did to Planet Terror. It's just...
I completely agree.
That's why it's weird for me. Otherwise, it would just be a good flick. I can see where people won't like it, where it's not a car movie. I'm not a car person, but I've come to appreciate and enjoy these types of movies. Like, I didn't think I'd like the first Fast and the Furious.
But it's all about family.
Apparently not until, you keep telling me, not until like the 4th or 5th one.
It's the whole catchphrase, don't worry.
I know. So would you recommend Death Proof?
Obviously, there's a caveat that, like, there is some horror action elements to this, but yes, I love this. I do think this is the more approachable of the two. If you are trying to get someone interested in, like, the duo, this is a good test one, because, again, there's no titties, there's no deformed penis like there was in the other one, and there's barely gore. Barely. Yeah. And honestly, the most visible one, Brian looked at it, went, looks like they just sprayed paint at him. So, like, it is very lightly gore. It's just an oddball movie, so I get that maybe not everyone will enjoy it the way I did. However, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and if you are one of my friends or associates, I will be recommending this to you.
Yeah, I think I'd be very hard to recommend it. I'd say, I do want to say I'd recommend it. I really would. Mm-hmm. But it'd be to select people. I'd say if you like Tarantino movies, I don't think you're going to like this one.
I agree. This is not the Tarantino flick of the lifetime.
And why I think it's overlooked by a lot of people, because they see it, it's like, oh, this isn't like his other stuff, so I'm not going to watch it.
Sure.
But I do say go watch it, because he does such a great job of throwing all these, like, little bits together that really add up to something different and unique that I don't think honestly, granted, I haven't gotten into any new car movies, but I don't know if there's anything else like this out there.
This is a pretty unique one as far as car movies go. Mm-hmm. Usually there's a lot more elements of chase. Again, there's usually a lot more action. The fact that it's all squished down into maybe 45 minutes worth of actual action for the whole film.
Yeah.
Kind of impressive. I do think, though, that, like, if you like horror, you're going to get a big kick out of all of the twists and turns that he does in this, the way that he handles all of it. Getting through the first part is maybe the most grueling, but it's worth it.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's the end of our pair of Grindhouse reviews. One of our very rare back-to-backs.
Yes, but they needed to be together.
Yeah, but don't unbuckle your seatbelts just yet. We have one more high-octane micro review and deep dive left, and I will tell you, our last one does have ties to Tarantino again.
Of course.
So, but anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the good, the bad, and the weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace!